This is the ultimate camera comparison video of Samsung Galaxy A54 versus Samsung Galaxy A55. The battle of the old versus new Samsung mid-range. Let's go to work. Today, another old versus new Samsung Galaxy A54 versus Samsung Galaxy A55. We are on a vacation right now and you would see stunning looking images. And I should say that these two phones did pretty well on this comparison test. These camera phones could be easily your companion for traveling as they produce really stunning photos on well-lit situation and even on darker environment. Not as good as the flagship competition, but if you don't shoot that much on nighttime, then both phones will do. Today we're shooting both indoors and outdoors. We're shooting food, people, sky and sea, and random colorful things. We're also utilizing all three sensors from the ultra-wide, wide, and the macro sensor. First, let's talk about colors, and both phones are identical. It's really hard to see the difference on a blind test, and even on a side-by-side shoot, there's barely any difference, but on some situations, you would see a little bit of difference between the two. The older Samsung Galaxy A54 is a little bit brighter than Galaxy A55. It exposes the shadows better and the color black. I like that it amplifies the brown better and it's a warmer white balance than A55. The yellows, orange, and browns are also brighter on the older Samsung mid-range, and on some shots I prefer the look on A54. I feel like these photos will be good for social media without editing. While the new Samsung Galaxy A55 is more toned down in terms of colors, you see that the color blue are more vivid than the older mid-range, and the white balance is cooler. The image on Galaxy A55 is closely matching the ones you can see on Galaxy S24 series. It crashes the shadows more than Galaxy A54, giving images a more natural look. Here, I would show you a little bit more sample images to see if you can spot the difference. Both phones have identical setup of wide, main sensor, and macro lens. And looking back at the comparison test, I think you would love any of these two phones in terms of quality. I think they're almost the same with just a few differences. And looking at all sensors from the ultra-wide, wide, and the 2x digital crop, colors are consistent. Today we're here in Orlando, Florida in the sunny Cocoa Beach. This is Samsung Galaxy A54 using the selfie camera in 4K 30 FPS. I will show you a little bit of the more section of this phone. I think in terms of future-proofing on vlogging, this is still a good phone because of the 4K video recording. Let's talk about portrait mode, and both phones are really good, even comparing with some of the top competition like Pixel 7a or even the flagship Pixel 8. Still, if you look closely, you would still see some of the differences between the two phones, and this might be your reason why you need to stick with the older A54 or upgrade to Galaxy A55. The subject separation or cutout is really good, maybe around 95% accurate, and you would see creamy background blur and big bokeh balls. The older Galaxy A54 has better exposure. You would see that the images are always brighter than Galaxy A55 on a lot of shots. You would also see that the bokeh balls are present on this phone, while that's not always the case for the newer mid-range. While the new Galaxy A55 has better contrast and shadows than Galaxy A54, sometimes the older mid-range will clip the highlights, giving you a super exposed image, and that's not good. And A55 also has better subject separation or cutout compared to Galaxy A54. They also have the same focal length with around 24mm, even though you have two rear cameras, the ultra-wide and the main. And checking the selfie, it's almost the same. Again, same tendencies as the rear camera. Galaxy A54 is a little bit brighter than A55, but the newer mid-range is natural looking skin tone. Looking at the night shots, these two phones are good, but not the best out there. I mean, Samsung will not give everything on the mid-range phones, and it's evident on A54 and A55. I think the biggest difference between the two phones is the details. You would see a lot of details on A55. It's almost washed out on Galaxy A54. Also, like the tendency of Galaxy A55, it has better contrast and shadows than A54. It doesn't clip the highlights like the old mid-range, and the images are mostly darker than the older A series. But if you check the brightness and even the autofocus, I would still give this to Galaxy A54. This could be an easy fix on the updates, but I don't know if Samsung is going on that direction. One unique thing about Samsung Galaxy A55 is the dual video recording. You can see my wife on the other end of the screen. Hi, love. So if you want this type of vlogging front and back, then Galaxy A55 is the way to go. Checking who manages the flaring better, I think on most shots, you will see that Galaxy A55 manages the flaring better. Inspecting the highlights, if you look outside the window, you will see a little bit more information on Galaxy A55 looking at the sea. And good thing about the Galaxy A series is they both have macro sensor, so if you need close-up shots, then you have them on both phones. Talking about sharpness, if you look on the ultra-wide lens, Galaxy A55 is a little bit sharper than A54. On the main sensor, they both look the same, just a little bit over-sharpened on A54, and they both have the same reach. And lastly, the 50 megapixel battle details. I think both phones look the same. There's just a little bit over sharpening on the older A54, and the newer A55 has a natural look. So I think that's it for the image test, a difference of night shot. Now let's check the video test. This is the video quality of the ultra-wide main sensor and the digital crop, and as you can see, the colors are pretty consistent. This is the slow motion test in Full HD and just a difference in colors, natural looking on Galaxy A55. And again, same look on the super slow motion. This is the stabilization test while walking, and as you can see from the ultra wide to the main sensor, both of them has good stabilization. The only difference is the contrast, stronger on Galaxy A55. And lastly, low light condition. I think pretty similar on both phones. I like the contrast on A55 and it manages the highlights really well too. I think both phones are pretty similar in terms of image quality. The only difference is the low light condition, a little bit better on Galaxy A55. But if you get the Galaxy A54 cheaper, then I would go with the last year's model.